Mr. Lemire.
We have Brian Masse for 6 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And to Mr. Scott, thank you for both the witnesses being here today. Will you open up an inquiry under Section 48 of the Telecommunications Act to look at making sure that there's a guarantee of basic service levels, compensation, resiliency, and redundancy, especially on the emergency response aspect? But will you do that?
Thank you, Mr. Masse. We will be looking at a number of possibilities. I can't say what they will be yet. As I said, the first step is to examine and satisfy ourselves about the completeness of the responses, to work through ESWIG, and then the Commission will make a determination as to the next steps.
So here's a current scorecard, and this is what I think I find frustrating from myself with regards to what's taking place here, is that you have a failure by Rogers in the system, affecting not only just the economy, but also critically 911. That falls under responsibility of the minister and also to our regulatory bodies, because whatever anybody wants to say about it, we allowed a provider to actually provide service that wasn't complete and wasn't willing to invest in it because it wasn't technology as a problem. So now what's going to happen is the minister's been meeting privately with the CEOs of an industry that's notorious for fighting amongst themselves and also of unused and unscrupulous practices to consumers, as a competition bureau has shown. And now we have a regulator, being the CRTC, and no disrespect, Mr. Scott, you're a former TELUS executive, and we're not going to see all the documents. You've just admitted that already, that you're going to be redactions on those things. How is the public to have any confidence whatsoever in this process? And if it's not the minister's responsibility for this, then is it the CRTC, or do you not have the proper legislation? This shouldn't have happened. It's as simple as that. Whose fault is it at the end of the day? And how can the public's confidence be restored when we have all this insider stuff basically being set up for the solutions? There won't even be a public inquiry about it.
There was a lot of elements to that question. I will say this. Number one, you asked whose fault is it? The answer is Rogers. You asked me.
Well, no, they operate under legislation.
They do,
yeah,
but they operate the network, and they are responsible, and they are and have taken responsibility for the outage. Our responsibility will be to investigate thoroughly. We do so in a public manner, through public proceedings. The only information which will be kept confidential is that which is either harmful for competitive reasons or harmful because it could provide a toolkit for those who would exploit weaknesses in the networks.
So what penalty will Rogers have for this from you?
We have not even barely begun our examination. I can't reach a conclusion before we have evidence.
So then what could be the results then? Is it going to be financial? Will it be any criminal? Will it be the consequences for people that couldn't get through 911 or have other problems that we don't even maybe know right now? But who's going to be subscribing those penalties? People want to know.
Well, first of all, whether or not penalties are required is a matter still to be determined. We have a number of tools at our disposal, the most obvious of which is administrative monetary penalties, but they are used to encourage compliance. They are not meant or designed to be punitive, which is made clear in the legislation. And obviously, we do not have jurisdiction over criminal matters.
Exactly. And so here we are again with basically what we have is the minister making up stuff in terms of what they can do at the time, doesn't even get a phone call about the situation. We have yourself didn't get a phone call about the situation. And we have a situation where our legislation doesn't even provide for any type of real culpability at the end of the day anyways. So you have a power that you could exercise now instead of fooling around with this, and we can get some information which you may or may not provide to the public, because you've already said that some of it might be redacted. So you're going to decide what those are. How does the public even know that? And what's the oversight, I guess, for yourself at the end of the day? Just Parliament?
I think that's a very significant oversight, but yes, we are accountable to Parliament. I would take issue with your characterization of the public will not know. Not only are the claims of confidentiality subject to applications by the public, but they are a matter of public record. So the information which it can be sought and Rogers will have to persuade the commission of the need to keep it confidential. The commitment I did make was that all the information Canadians need to understand how this happened and what is being done to lessen the possibility of any such thing happening in the future will be communicated in a fulsome way to Canadians.
And how are you going to be available, or what is, I guess, the powers that you have for these personal conversations that Rogers and others will have with the minister and all those meetings, and then other subsequent meetings that might take place, and who can be in as a carrier provided this and who's not? Like, how come, who's going to decide even who's even going to be in as the carriers for these things? And how are you going to get access to those meetings? Do you have access to all those meetings between the minister and the different organizations?
My understanding is that the matters that the minister has raised are being assigned to ESWIG. And ESWIG is a committee made up of ISED representatives as well as industry technical representatives. And I have been assured that we will be invited to participate at the
will all that be public?
Is all of the matters at ESWIG public? No, because it relates to technical issues that, if were completely public, would create a toolkit for those who have nefarious intentions. There is certain information that needs to be protected, Mr. Masse.
Okay. Well,
yeah, but just not the public.
No, the public includes those who would exploit that information.
Okay, we're out of time.